Here is example number 2 on your worksheet. Now we are going to begin seeing variables in our denominator. It's important to realize that we cannot have 0 in our denominator. So when we get completely done with working our solutions, we need to make sure that our solutions will not make the denominator 0. Now in this instance, the only thing that would make the denominator 0 would be 0. So I'm just going to make a little note right there that says x can't be 0. So if that shows up, we'll just cross it out. We're going to follow exactly the same steps we followed before. We're going to look for a least common denominator. And in this case, the only denominators are made up of x's. That's going to be what we multiply our entire equation by. So we're going to multiply x times this side, and then we are going to multiply the other side by x. Now a couple of things happen. First of all, this 6 becomes 6x. But when we multiply to the fraction, the x's actually reduce and we get plus 5. Now on the other side, when we do the x times x, we actually get an x squared. And then multiplying over to this last, we get a minus, of course, because it's minus here. The x's cancel and it's just a 2. When we come across a situation where we have just one x squared like that, and nothing else is an x squared, so nothing will make the x squareds go away, we have to realize at this point we have a quadratic equation because there is an x squared. What that means is we will need to put it into standard form for a quadratic and either factor or use the quadratic equation. In this case, we're going to have problems that just factor. We won't need to use the quadratic formula to get any of our answers on this worksheet. Now this has x squared already positive, so what I'm going to do is move these two terms over here to keep my x squared positive and make factoring easy. To do that, I would need to do the opposite here, subtract 6x, and then subtract the 5. So if I subtract 5 and I subtract 6x, what would happen is I would have this on the right and 0 on the left. Of course, the problem here is this is completely out of order. It needs to have the x squared term, then the x term, then the constant. So I actually want to write it minus 6x minus 7. What I'm looking for is two factors that will multiply to give me that negative 7. So it multiplies to negative 7, meaning they have different signs, and they need to add to negative 6. So that would mean that I could factor this into x minus 7, x plus 1. If I multiply those, they give me negative 7. If I add them, I get negative 6. So I know that that is actually the factoring that I need to solve this. It turns out that I have two solutions here. One of my solutions comes from the fact that x minus 7 equals 0. That will give me the solution 7. Or I could take this and set it equal to 0, which would give me x is equal to negative 1. A shorthand way to write that solution is to put it in a solution set in numerical order, so the smaller one and then the larger one. Neither one of these will make my denominator equal to 0. I only had that one restriction at the beginning. So this is my solution set to this equation. Both the negative 1 and the 7 will make this equal. Now let's move on to example 3.